A Kurdish separatist group based in Iraq claims that it has launched armed attacks against Iran's Revolutionary Guard in response to what it defines as violent suppression of protesters. The Kurdistan Freedom Party, known as PAK, claims its fighters have conducted operations inside Iran over recent days as Tehran's crackdown on nationwide protests continues.
The Kurdistan Freedom Party, an Iranian Kurdish group, claimed that Iran's regime carried out a ballistic missile and drone attack on its forces overnight between Tuesday and Wednesday. According to a source, the attack took place in Iraq, where the PAK has fighters. The PAK said that members of its armed unit, the Kurdistan National Army, SMK, were targeted.
Andrew, good afternoon. We start with this breaking news. Iran's Kurdistan Freedom Party tells Fox News their military wing in Iraq came under fire overnight in a drone attack that was launched by Iran. You can see in this exclusive video provided to Fox News one of those drone impacts at a base in northern Iraq. There was a significant amount of damage at this location. The Kurds of western Iran have resisted the Iranian regime and their crackdown on protesters, but they've paid a heavy price for doing so. There are very close links between the Kurds in western Iran and in northern Iraq.
PAK is one of several important Kurdish groups that operate in Iran and oppose the regime. It has been publicly very active in backing the protests in Iran. Video and photos from the site of the attack show the destruction of vehicles and other debris from the incident. It was not clear from the videos whether the attack was by a missile, drones, or both. Iran has attacked Kurdish dissident groups in Iraq in the past using ballistic missiles and drones. What this reported overnight attack highlights is not just a single military incident, but a much older and deeper struggle between the Iranian state and its Kurdish population. A struggle that has shaped life in Iran's Kurdish regions for generations and continues to spill across borders today. Kurds are one of the largest ethnic groups in Iran, numbering in the millions, living mainly in the western and northwestern parts of the country near Iraq and Turkey. Yet despite their size and long history in these lands, they have rarely felt accepted or trusted by the central government in Tehran, which has consistently viewed Kurdish identity, organization, and political activity as a potential threat to national unity. From the Kurdish perspective, this conflict is not only about politics or armed groups, but about everyday life under constant pressure, where speaking their language, openly teaching it in schools, celebrating cultural traditions, or organizing peacefully can bring attention from security forces and accusations of separatism or terrorism. Kurdish areas have long been heavily monitored and militarized, with checkpoints, intelligence presence, and periodic raids becoming normal parts of life, reinforcing the feeling that Kurds are treated less like citizens and more like suspects. These tensions intensified dramatically after the 1979 Islamic Revolution, when many Kurds initially supported the overthrow of the Shah, believing that a new system promising justice and equality might finally recognize minority rights and allow some form of local self-rule. But those hopes were quickly crushed when the newly formed Islamic Republic rejected Kurdish demands, labeled Kurdish political parties as enemies of the revolution, and sent the Revolutionary Guards into Kurdish cities and villages, sparking violent clashes that killed thousands and left deep scars that never fully healed. A quick side note: if you like what we're doing and would like to see more videos like this, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe our channel. Now, back to the video. Although the large-scale fighting faded decades ago, Kurdish regions never truly returned to normal, as the state maintained a strong security grip that limited political life, punished dissent harshly, and created long-lasting distrust toward Tehran. Economically, Kurdish regions have remained among the most neglected parts of Iran, suffering from high unemployment, weak infrastructure, and limited investment, even though they are rich in natural resources and sit along important trade routes. And this economic neglect has pushed many Kurds into dangerous informal work, especially border trade with Iraq, where men known as kolbars carry heavy goods across mountainous terrain in freezing cold or extreme heat, risking falls, avalanches, and being shot by Iranian border guards, with dozens killed or injured every year, turning state policy into personal tragedy for countless families and reinforcing the belief that Kurdish lives are valued less by the government. Cultural pressure adds another layer to this sense of injustice, as Kurdish language education is extremely limited in public schools, forcing children to study in Persian even when Kurdish is their first language, while Kurdish writers, musicians, journalists, and activists face censorship arrests or bans if their work touches on identity history or criticism of the state, and even peaceful cultural events or memorial gatherings can be shut down by security forces, teaching people from a young age that expressing who they are comes with risk. Religion also deepens the divide because many Iranian Kurds are Sunni Muslims living under a Shiite-dominated political and religious system that offers Sunnis very little representation in high-level government, the military. Or the clergy restricts Sunni religious institutions and limits the construction of Sunni mosques in major cities, creating a sense of double exclusion for Kurdish Sunnis who feel marginalized both ethnically and religiously. Over time, this combination of political repression, economic hardship, cultural pressure, and religious discrimination has convinced many Kurds that peaceful paths to change are blocked, which helps explain why some support or join armed opposition groups that claim to defend Kurdish rights, operating from remote mountainous areas or from across the border in Iraqi Kurdistan, even though these groups are usually small, lightly equipped, and no real match for the Iranian state. Iran labels these groups terrorists and foreign agents, often accusing them of working with enemies abroad, while many Kurds see them not as the cause of instability, but as a symptom of decades of repression. And even Kurds who oppose armed struggle often understand why it exists when legal political activity regularly leads to prison, torture, or execution. This cycle of resistance and repression became visible to the entire world after the death of Gina, also known as Mahsa Amini, a young Kurdish woman who died after being arrested by Iran's morality police. An event that shocked Kurdish communities, but also sparked nationwide protests that crossed ethnic and regional lines using the Kurdish slogan, "Woman, Life, Freedom," and turning Kurdish resistance from a marginalized issue into the emotional core of the largest challenge the Islamic Republic has faced in years. Kurdish cities were among the first to erupt in protest and among the hardest hit by security forces, with mass arrests, shootings, and executions, leading many Kurds to feel they were being punished not only for protesting, but for inspiring others to do the same, which deepened Tehran's fear that Kurdish activism could ignite broader unrest. At the same time, the Iranian government increasingly accused Kurdish groups based in Iraq of fueling protests and threatening national security, pointing to the semi-autonomous Kurdistan region of Iraq as a dangerous example that could encourage similar demands inside Iran. And this fear has driven Tehran to strike Kurdish opposition targets across the border, using missiles and drones, blurring the line between domestic repression and regional military action and putting civilians in Iraq at risk. From Iran's point of view, these strikes are framed as defensive measures against terrorism, but for Kurds, they are further proof that the state sees Kurdish political existence itself as a threat, even beyond Iran's borders.
Iranian state media has labeled protesters as terrorists and accused them of receiving American and Israeli support without providing evidence. Iran's state television broadcast surveillance footage appearing to show armed men in Kurdish dress firing weapons in western Iran. The semi-official Tasnim news agency, linked to the Revolutionary Guard, said Kurdish groups including PKK have moved beyond psychological operations into direct military action.
This ongoing confrontation is also shaped by the Iranian regime's broader worldview, which prioritizes strong central control, ideological unity, and security over pluralism, making it deeply uncomfortable with ethnic diversity and local autonomy, especially in border regions that connect to conflicts in Iraq, Syria, and Turkey. As a result, Kurdish demands that are often basic and widely accepted elsewhere, such as education in one's own language, local governance, economic opportunity, and protection from arbitrary arrest are interpreted as dangerous challenges to the system answered with force rather than compromise. In the end, most Kurds opposing the Iranian regime are not calling for chaos or sudden separation, but for dignity, equality, and a chance to live without constant fear. Yet as long as the state continues to treat Kurdish identity as something to control instead of something to accept, incidents like this reported overnight attack will not be exceptions but recurring moments in a long, painful, and unresolved conflict that continues to shape lives on both sides of the border. What happens next will matter far beyond one overnight strike or one armed group. The conflict between the Iranian regime and the Kurds is not only about missiles, drones, or security claims, but about a deeper question of how a state treats millions of its own people who have long felt unheard and unwanted. As long as Kurdish identity is met with force instead of dialogue, and dissent is answered with repression rather than reform, tensions will continue to spill across borders and pull civilians into the middle of a conflict they did not choose. Whether this cycle continues or changes will depend not only on military actions, but on whether space is ever created for rights, dignity, and political inclusion, something Kurds in Iran have been demanding for generations. Thank you for watching. If you like what we do, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe our channel. Until next time.